Matt, did you know that you can play PS5 in a car now?
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can. The thumbnail begs to disagree.
Hello and welcome to This Is Sony. Took a look at what Microsoft is doing and said, hey, we want a piece of that. They looked at the Microsoft Surface and the Alcantara and said, we want to put that in a car. We got a chance to look at the soon-to-be released in several years, Afeela by Sony Honda Mobility.
This is a thing that has been talked about for a while. I believe it was CES 2020. They first announced that they were thinking about doing a car. CES 2023, just a couple of months ago, they showed off the Afeela, which is a collaboration, a 50-50 shot between Sony and Honda, which is a weird combination in a lot of ways. But we actually had time to spend with literally the one and only concept in the entire world.
Yes.
There's one of these things, for reference, this is a concept car. We were not able to drive it. I don't think it drives at all. However, it was loaded with a ton of cool tech, including the ability to play PS5. It has screens, front, back, middle, side, front grille. There's a lot to talk about here because we actually had time to spend with some of the people from Afeela, which, for reference, is the name of the brand. So the company is Sony Honda Mobility, but the brand is Afeela, right?
Sony Honda Mobility. That is the overall
the company. And then below that is Afeela, the brand.
Yes.
Below that will be the names of the cars. So this
which we do not have yet. This could be the whatever, the Kratos, the Afeela Sackboy. Everyone's gonna be driving an Afeela Sackboy in the year 2027. Mark my words. You can mark it on your calendar right now. I do feel better about Afeela being the brand name versus the car name. It's still not good.
A lot of reason for that is they're trying to push like mobility and autonomy. There's a lot to break down here. So first of all, why don't we actually just talk about the tech? Because I think that was the part that is the most
Which is really
finished.
the selling point of it, is how much they've crammed into this. They really went all in on entertainment. This is a luxury vehicle, so let's be clear on that.
And I will say that, like, looking at it in stills did not do it justice. Like, when I first saw it, I'll be honest, I'll be like, looks like a generic town, whatever. But when you actually see it in person, you realize this thing is massive. So I don't know the exact specs off the top of my head, but this looks as big as something like a Tesla Model X, a Mercedes EQS, a very large sort of luxury style sedan, which is also going to almost certainly have a very large price tag to match. This is meant to be huge, luxurious, and I think considering that, the proportions are really nice. But immediately when you look at it, you see the screens. So as the driver, you have a display right in front of you, which is very common. You also have, to the far left and the far right, screens instead of mirrors. So you have digital cameras, which, to be fair, is not a unique thing. So a number of vehicles, especially a lot of European vehicles, are offering this as an option. Although unfortunately in the US, that is actually not allowed because you have to have physical mirrors. On top of that, there's also one very large display between the driver and the passenger, which in software is split in half, but realistically is actually one large panel.
So it's basically like having like an ultra wide. So there's a invisible seam down the middle.
We were watching a bit of a trailer, and you could take it and just slide it between the screens.
Very cool the way that works. And then in the back are two fairly large inch screens in the back for the two passenger side.
And what's cool is from the front, you can literally just start playing a video or whatever, and you can just go, oh, play it in the back left headrest and the passenger or whatever. You can control it all and throw it around fairly well. Clearly, this is a concept car. This software is nowhere near final. But considering that, it actually was in relatively good shape. Like if you said that this was shipping next year, I'd be like, yeah, sure, check it out.
Unfortunately, I was not able to play PlayStation in it because let's talk about the elephant in the room. They claim you can play PlayStation games in it, which it's not incorrect.
I literally had a DualShock in my hand and I was playing PlayStation on it. It worked.
Asterisk. Big asterisk. Boom. Asterisk.
It's a big
all right.
asterisk.
It's remote play. All this tech in here right now, and they did not put in an actual PlayStation 5.
It has 5G. I don't know of any other cars that actually have 5G right now. Obviously, what you're getting here is really a streaming experience, but the ability for you to play PlayStation on the go, even on like the back headrest or whatever, is neat. And that was actually, I'll say, a shout out to the Afeela crew. They were very open to like feedback, right? Like they literally were taking notes and asking us like what we thought and everything, because this is not going to go on sale until likely around 2026. So there's still a lot of development to do, not only with building the brand, which is going to take a while, figuring out how this thing is going to be sold, where it's going to be manufactured, how they're going to actually brand it. The impression I got was that they're going to be selling it maybe like online, and then they'll do some kind of like delivery kind of thing, but you'll actually be buying it from Afeela, not from Sony. You're not going into a Honda dealership. It's really interesting to think about this thing as far as they've got a few years to really build this up. And they've got a really good head start. Like, honestly, the car was, for a concept, was way more fleshed out than I thought.
Talk about the Alcantara from the beginning. The entire interior, it's Alcantara. So the same material that's on like a Surface keyboard. And it
incredibly
felt
soft.
So nice. I mean, like we talk about the size of it. I'm a big fucking dude, okay? And I fit in there perfectly comfortably.
It's also kind of neat because when you first walk up to the car, it actually uses facial recognition. So you can obviously, there's an app. Essentially what you do is you walk up, there's a camera on the B pillar. It detects you and opens the door. There actually are no door handles on the concept.
That immediately backfired when we were in there. So that like when we talk about how they were receptive to taking notes, I'm like, hey, is there like a way to do like a guest or like for facial recognition? Like, well, why would you need that? And I'm like, what happens if you have someone who's not regularly a part of your, circle who's got to get in your car? They can't get in your car. Well, just use the phone. I'm like, whoa, it's a great idea on paper, but the actual execution of it, like a door handle will always be more convenient.
Fair enough. But once you get in the car, you realize it's a nice place to be, right? So on top of all of the screens and the software, it also has support for 360 reality audio, I think is Sony's branding for it. But essentially, it's spatial audio.
It was okay.
So basically, we got to listen to one very specially selected track in stereo, which just sounded fine, and then in the full 360 mix. And at least me in the front seat, you could actually really tell each instrument felt like it was completely separated. Obviously, with the Sony branding, there were tons of themes around a bunch of Sony movies, which I thought was neat. So there's Spider-Man.
The only one that matters.
I'm Morbin.
And on top of that, the Afeela has a screen not only on the grille, but also on the tailgate. And both of those also can change. It was nice because you can use that to see like charging indication, seeing like the weather. They had it like we were showing like sports game scores.
So like they have one that's like actually notifications from your phone. We're like, I don't know if I want the entire public to see that I got a text message from someone. The ones that make a lot of sense is like while it's charging, it's literally a status bar across the front of the grill. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's also just like a little thing to like customize the car a little bit to be you.
Yeah.
All right, how many white Teslas do you see driving around, especially where we are? Now, having just a little bit of strip there, that could add a little bit of color, add a little bit of customization.
You have Spider-Man hanging on your back. Like, it's cool.
Part of me is worried that Sony would just do that, of just like while you're at a red light, they would just automatically turn on
ad mode. Now, for some context, so Afeela was only really, or at least Sony like Honda Mobility, has only been like an official proper project for a little while now. I think they said that they launched it, or like they actually incorporated it. No, they actually incorporated the company last year. So it's interesting to see that they're clearly moving really quickly here, but they have an enormous amount of work to do to not only develop the car fully, work on that software, which does seem like really what Sony are bringing in. Clearly what they're trying to do right now as they're building the brand is understand what people like and what people don't like about this. So that by the time in the next couple of years where they're really ready to finalize it for production, they know what they should be doing. I think that they're pretty close. Honestly, I think the car looks pretty good. Probably needs some mirrors, probably needs some door handles, but other than that, like the actual look is pretty much there. I also think that the screens and the tech inside is terrific. Mind you, a little bit more polished on that software. Now, there are a ton of questions about this as far as the power, the range, the price, yada, yada,
We don't have any of that yet.
But I'm going to assume the price is a lot. The range will be all right.
I had some more granular car concerns with it. The first one is currently it has 0 cargo space. Again, this is a prototype, so let's like whatever. But like at the moment, there is no plan for a Frunk.
No, like, they had actually they had not decided that.
Well, yeah, but like it's not. It doesn't exist at the moment. As big as this car is, there's not a lot of cargo space in it. Period.
I will say I've been in a fair few concept and like pre-production vehicles, and they do typically dump a lot of the electronics and stuff in the trunk while they're working on it.
Yeah, so, I'm saying like if say they move all that out, the back part of the car is very small. All the leg room you had in the back of the seat, is you're sacrificing some of that cargo space. I know it's a sedan, but like it is a big sedan.
I will say that the Frunk is something that they're still deciding on. Now, with a lot of electric cars, you have one of two options. Either you have a Frunk, which is what like a Tesla and some other cars have, but typically that means that a lot of the stuff that is in the Frunk has to be be moved into the car. Now, I personally think that the Afeela, it's a big, long car. The Frunk area is huge. So I would like to think that if you open up the hood, they would have at least a little bit of cargo space there, which is always nice, especially in a sedan. You can have some hidden storage. No one needs to know about it. But I also very much value the fact that there's so much room on the interior. You can really kind of spread out. You don't have this tunnel that's like right beside your leg.
It's I want a little bit more cargo space personally. The other big thing is like, well, who is this for? Because when I think of Honda, I don't think of luxury.
I don't think it's not a Honda.
Well, like I don't think of Hondas as bad cars. They're very nice, reliable cars. But like again, this is gonna be a really pricey vehicle. Why is this not an Acura? Why, like
I absolutely agree with that. It's very strange, right? Now I get that Sony as a company who want to make lots of money and who've branched out into a ridiculously wide number of electronics. They own movie studios, music, all this kind of stuff. The cars are a fairly natural thing. And this is not like something to cast aspersions on Afeela or anything. But my question is like, is this really the move? They've clearly pretty much committed to it at this point, right?
Yeah,
they developed the company, like they're going to do this. I get that Sony and Honda, while it seems like it's a sort of strange situation, it does make some sense. Honda have not really dived that deeply into the EV space, but Sony having the technological experience with the software, obviously as an electronics manufacturer, they know a lot of that. Whereas Honda have years and years of experience building vehicles. That kind of makes sense, but you're right. Why is this not just an Acura? Which clearly that's a brand that Honda owns that is also heavily leaning into EVs. Is there gonna be some shared stuff? Maybe is it gonna have like the same platform or same software ever? Probably. But this feels slightly strange to me. And especially considering that while this looks cool for today here in 2023, the EV space is likely going to be much more competitive 3 years from now when this eventually goes on sale. And while I don't want to just say like, oh, that means that they should give up. No, I would love to see more competition. But I also am a little bit like, it's a big gamble, guys. This is a big gamble. And it's good. It's pretty cool. But I'm also not seeing any like massive reasons why you as a consumer should consider buying the Sony Honda Afeela.
I think it's gonna be more niche, which is difficult to really build the brand if it's niche. You had like, all right, when Tesla first came out, they were like only, right? Like the only EV you could get that was.
There were a couple of small ones,
yeah, but like
the only like serious EV.
So like I'm talking about Model S, yeah. Like in order to make waves, they had to come out with the 3, which was dirt cheap compared to anything else for EV.
Compared to the S, it was much cheaper, yes.
So like my thought is like, are they coming out with this one that's gonna be a $100,000 car?
Yeah.
So they can come out a few years later and say, here's the Afeela 2, which is significantly cheaper. Like get the luxury, but in the cheaper thing. Because like there's so many things that I want. I love everything that they've done in it. I wish more cars would have like the interiors that they had.
Here's the thing though, and the thing that concerns me. This is clearly meant to be more luxury focused.
Right.
If you look at the Mercedes EQS, it looks very similar on the outside, and it has a hyperscreen, which is almost the same thing. But when you look at that is a car that you can buy today. This Afeela is years away. So if the Afeela can match what's happening today, I don't know if that's going to be enough. You know, if you look at like why you buy an EV, especially an expensive one, you're looking for a couple different things. Tesla clearly has the performance game down, right? A Model S or Model X, whatever, especially a Plaid, is unbelievably fast. On the flip side, if you're looking for luxury, you've got Lucid, you've got Mercedes, you've got BMW, you've got a lot of brands who are really trying to lean into that luxurious, sort of smooth, serene experience. And to me, I don't fully understand where the Afeela lines up.
I think there's too many, at this point, there's too many luxury brands.
And think about how many more are going to be around 3 years from now.
Right. So like I feel like the move would have been to try and go somewhere more in the middle.
The thing is though, it almost is too late for that too, because there are so many brands who are creating more affordably priced electric cars as well.
But
so
if you want to break into the industry from zero, which is what they're doing, sure. I mean, like obviously they have the knowledge of Honda, so they do have the leg up over any other company that's coming from scratch, which literally has to figure out how to make a car and then make
go bankrupt along the way.
Right. So like I don't know if the entertainment side of it is enough to launch the brand.
With the software support that they've got, with the ability for you to play, videos and watch movies and play games, I do think they should probably just build an actual PS5 inside, right? The remote play is nice, but this thing obviously needs a lot of processing power anyway. Throw a PS5 in there. I mean, if you buy a Tesla right now, especially an S or an X, it basically has a PS5 chip inside where you can actually play games on Steam and stuff, right? Like it's a very powerful vehicle. That is a thing that you could have bought a year and a half ago that existed. Considering how expensive this is, it can't be that much more expensive to throw in basically a PS5. It could still have all the Qualcomm, the stuff to actually run all the electronics and the driverless. And that's actually one of the things we haven't really discussed too much. This thing is very much meant, while of course it has a yoke and it is meant to be driven, but the driverless features are pretty strong. It had something like, what, 45
cameras.
Yeah, but the thing is, again, coming back to around, while this is nice, you look at the Mercedes, you look at, they're actually showing off their system, which is level 3. And the way that one works is when you go full driverless, you are no longer legally responsible. If you put it in the full driverless mode on whatever conditions that the car deems is okay, and you get into an accident or something, Mercedes-Benz are liable for that, right? Which is obviously a huge deal, but they're that far ahead at this point. If this car can barely maybe match that 3 years later, it's just one of those things. Again, I feel like it's good. I would love to see it succeed. I I'm a little concerned it's too late. I almost feel like this needs to be coming out now, not 3 years from now.
And then
when the space is far, far more advanced than it is today. It's
a lot of EVs have come out in that 3 years since we've seen it at CES.
Absolutely.
But let us know in the comments what you think about it. Are you feeling what it's throwing down? Like, follow, subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.
I want my PS5 card.
Next one. I can talk.
Yeah, you can talk them into putting a PS5 in my car.